Good evening, everybody. Let's get rid of that thing. Welcome to 2021. I'd like to introduce everyone to Michael Davenport. We're talking about Cote Hill tonight. We are talking his amazing, his red, his blue, and his linden. But first of all, Michael, we made out of 2020 without anything. We're here. The year is gone. Are you looking forward to the year coming?
Yes, I'm very positive about 2021. It's going to be better than last year. We had to sort of make a lot of changes last year, all to the good, and I think we're going to build on those next year. And now we've got the vaccine coming in. I think there's we can see a bit of light at the end of the tunnel on that.
Yeah, no, it's I don't know. It's just been brutal. It's just been brutal. I mean, I don't know about your Christmas. My Christmas was me, my wife, two small children, and some stockings. That was the sum total of our Christmas day.
Yes, yeah. Well, at least I've got a few dogs and cows to help along as well. So.
Yeah. So tell us about your farm. How many cows? How many acres? Where exactly are you?
We're just sort of north of Market Rasen in Lincolnshire. So we can the Wolds are about sort of 4 miles away. So we've got lovely picturesque views, and we are a 184 acre farm, so quite small, and with an 80 cow herd with followers. So that's the females that will calve next year and the year after to replace.
So did you say an 80 cow herd?
Yes, 80 cows. 80. Yeah. Predominantly Holstein, Friesian. We've just introduced brown Swiss cows, which are very photogenic, but they're also very good at producing very good quality milk, fat and protein.
I mean, you've been milking. I've got it down the bottom here. You've been milking for 50 years. That's your bread and butter skill. Cheese making, for a man of your experience and wisdom, 16 years is a blink. You've sort of come to it late.
Yes, we did. Yeah, born out of necessity, really, but it's something that necessity often does sort of. They say is a mother invention, isn't it?
So tell us, necessity why? Because you're too small a farm to do anything else? What was your thinking?
Yeah, pretty much that, Charlie. Yeah, we're a small herd. Sort of 20 years ago, I was doing everything really. So milking all the cows, rearing the young stock. I would get contractors in to harvest the grass and the maize for making silage, but otherwise it was sort of nearly 7 days a week. So when you're sort of just in your 50s, you think, well, actually, can I do this in 10 years' time? And sort of 15 years.
I can't possibly comment. I'm 50 this year.
All right. You'll do it at the moment, but I'll tell you, 10 years you won't want to be milking cows. So
yeah, no, probably right. So 80 cows. Let's put some maths towards that. So how much cheese can you produce a year, and does all your milk get used in your dairy?
Not all our milk. We're producing round figures 500,000 litres a year, and we're using just over a third of that, 200.
Okay, so you've got capacity to expand.
We could if we want to, yeah. We have talked about that as a family, but I think at the moment we're just sort of consolidating and making sure we've got the cheese, the quality of the cheese is going out consistently. If you expand, it can bring added complications. So it's something we're not ready to do yet. Or really, it's not really my decision now because, Ross and Joe are sort of stepping in to take it over.
It's a family affair with you. So you've got your wife, Mary, who's a cheesemaker.
Yes, she is. Yeah. So I
and
came
your two boys.
2004 and went to learn how to make cheese, and then sort of said to Mary, well, off you go. So I carried on milking the cows.
and your two boys, Ross and Joe, I mean, what do they do? It must be great to employ your whole family on the farm. I mean, that's a lovely family cheese supported adventure.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I'm so pleased. It's something that Mary and I were, so sort of passionate about, interested in, and we thought, well, there's an opportunity there. We've got 4 boys, so we did sort of put it out for all 4 of them if anybody was interested. And
so you put it out to tender.
Pretty much, yes. There was no financial rewards or anything. It was just sort of the joy of being part of a family farm and working in the countryside. Joe, our second son, he sort of decided in 2009 that he'd like to come and make cheese with his mum, and that's when he first started with us. And he's now the head cheesemaker, and he's making fabulous cheese. So very consistent.
So let's put on things. So you are a raw milk cheesemaker. You're not just a cheesemaker, you're a raw milk cheese. Are all your cheeses raw milk?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Because, you know, we were chatting before this. Raw milk is at the very difficult end of the cheese making spectrum. You've got to have very great skills all the way from the pasture to the maturing rooms.
Yeah.
Why did you choose raw milk?
Well, I'd sort of been milking cows, as I've said, many years, and always producing this, I thought, fantastic quality product. And then it would just go off in a bulk tank lorry and get processed and disappear and just become a bit of, you know, white liquid in a bottle. And I really wanted to probably put a sort of an identity to the milk that I'm producing on this farm.
So it was pride in your product that made you want to sort of make it as best it can.
And I think all dairy farmers do take pride in their cows, and unfortunately, just, you know, the way the system set up for milk production, for liquid milk and for big scale cheese production, it just becomes a commodity. Whereas, you know, myself, I thought, right, well, you know, we'll make it a little bit more unique, a bit more niche, and you know, that's what, you know, other dairy farms have done, you know, since we've started making, and of course, you know, quite a few were doing it before us.
Yeah, you're sort of mid-range in the cheese renaissance thing. You know, we're kicking off in the early 90s. I mean, 16 years ago, unfortunately for people like us, it's almost like a blink of an eye. So, you know, you're in that second wave, a lot of good quality. So let's not delay any longer. Introduce us to your cheeses. What do you make? What do they look like? How they're made? Let's taste them.
Well, we make, there's actually 4 cheeses, but tonight we're introducing 3 of our cheeses. So it's not very clever, but it's Cote Red, Cote Blue, and then the one that is a bit different is the one that Joe developed, which is a wash rind cheese, and that's our Cote Lindum. And it's named Lindum because that is the Roman name for Lindum Colonia, which was the Roman name for Lincoln, which is the capital.
Oh, was it?
Yes.
Ah,
yeah.
That's new information to me. So it's Cote Hill, Lincoln, 2,000 years ago.
Yes, that's it. Yes.
Okay, cool. Okay, well, that's cool. So which one would you want to go with first? And I mean, this is there's a clue. I think this must be the Cote Hill Red.
That's it, Charlie. You've got it. Yeah. So, yeah.
Should we start there?
Yes, I think that'd be very sensible. Yeah. It's.
Now, I obviously know your cheeses and did my research. You described this as Alpine influenced. So what does that mean?
It's the flavour is more what you would expect to find in the Alpine cheeses. So it's not a Comte, but it's that sort of end of the profile. So there's a bit of sweetness there, a bit of nuttiness. It's not sort of acidic. It has a lovely sort of smell when you just open the packet, and then it's not a pungent cheese after that, but it has got a very, I think, appetizing smell. The red is unfortunately just a plastic coat that we applied to seal and mature it. So
you painted it on.
Yes, it's not natural, I'm afraid. I'd love it to be natural. So we need to cut that off, and it won't hurt you if you eat it. It's just a little bit chewy though. So
yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, there is a lot of cheesemakers use it. I mean, it's really sort of superseded the lard and the muslin.
It has. Yeah. No, Lincolnshire Poacher, also neighbours of yours use it, and don't tell anybody, kind of thing.
Works very well on their cheese, and so we made this. It was born in 2010 when Joe joined the cheese team. We applied for a grant to expand the business, so we started in 2004, quite small, and then we produced 9 tons, and we just hadn't got enough rooms, so we got a grant to expand it further, add more rooms on, bespoke maturing rooms for the cheeses that we're making. Part of the grant requirement was development of a new cheese, and originally the idea that we would try and develop a wash rind cheese, which is the Cote Lindum. I did try and do that, but unfortunately I realized very quickly that it was going to take a little while to develop a wash rind cheese successfully that was consistent and tasty.
That is the equivalent to inviting a rave into your dairy. Washed rind says, more molds, more bacteria, more yeasts. Come on in, see what happens.
Yes, so it didn't work, but the outcome of the grant was we had to meet certain criteria, one of which was the development of a new cheese.
So outline how it's made. Is it a cheddar? Is it a Gouda? Or is it a Gruyere? What's it doing?
Well, sits on its own sort of merits, really. It's something I think we used the similar sort of recipe that we made our Cote Yellow, which we're not tasting tonight, which is a sort of an Edam style pasta filata.
Okay.
Type.
So is it a washed curd cheese?
No. It's basically made about 42 degrees, quite warm. That's the sort of texture. It's the curd's very dry, so not a lot of moisture in it. And then we actually fill 2 molds and then put them together, so one on top of the other. So it sort of makes this bigger cheese, and then gets painted with the red coating, and it sits in the maturing room. We're hopefully for 4 months, because it will start to develop the flavours. We were selling it out at 2 months, and it was very bland. But the longer it goes on,
I would imagine so. This is a cheese that would, I imagine it would go to 8, 12, maybe even 16 months. Your plastic coat is holding it from trouble.
Yes.
But these are flavours that could go on and on, I would have thought. Have you tried holding it later?
Well, yes, by accident, because Mary actually found it. And I think she realised it was about, was it 18 months old? Yeah. So it got to the back of the store, and we hadn't realised it was there. It went straight onto the chicken food pile. So I said,
did it?
But this first. So I rescued it from the chickens. It hadn't gone to the chickens. It was about to go. So and it was absolutely delicious. There were crystals in there. It had dried out, and
I think that you should. Yeah, no, I would definitely say it's. By the way, you're not the first person who's told me they've lost cheese every now and again. Some really well-known cheesemakers, big cheesemakers, not the Dairy Crest as well, but big cheese in our world. It seems astonishing to me that you can lose a pallet in your storeroom somewhere.
Yes. Well, it was only one cheese. It's not huge, We haven't lost.
Oh, it's only one. Well,
I think this cheese. So,
I think this cheese is a prime candidate for our long hold. I really do. I think it's got lots of interesting flavors that will produce those caramel notes, those dry notes, that interesting sort of break texture with crystals.
Well, the trouble is, it's very tempting to sell it at 6 months, because then the money comes in and we don't have to wait longer.
Yeah, no, I'm not against that. It's our dirty little secret. Our whole industry is we talk up the passion and the raw milk and the terroir, and then someone pays us a few quid and we'll go, oh yeah, that'll do.
Yeah, we've got to live, Charlie. I mean,
Yes. Well, I was mentioning this to a larger cheddar maker, and he reckons that in his store there's 2 million quid's worth of street value cheese, and you cannot build that up over 16 years. 16 years feels like a long time to some people, but that's built up over decades, and it's quite dead money is a bit harsh, but it's like,
it is. Yeah. If you keep it longer, it'll cost a lot more, doesn't it? But
it does. It's a big expense. Right. So what flavors do you want from your Cote Hill Red? What is it that you look for when you think it's at its best?
It's sort of a bit of a sweetness to it. And the slight sort of then the savouriness starts to come in a little bit. Very low on acidity. It's not a sort of an acid cheese. It
has got some acidity. It's got hints of softened cheddar flavours, if that makes sense.
Yeah, a very young cheddar. Yeah.
Well, but it's got bits of Marmite.
Yes.
So some dense umami. I would go even some vegetal notes, some resinous notes, but it's predominantly kind of got that buttercream thing, which is very, very pleasant. It's very good.
We're trying to retain that sort of identity of the milk, and it I think on our blue cheese as well, we get that coming through at the end after you get all the complex ones and the ones before the subtle ones sit on your tongue, and it's got a good length of flavour, which I think is another good test of a cheese. It's how long it stays in your mouth. And
the other test of cheese that I like cheese when I was a cheesemonger, when I was selling cheese, was does this sell across the spectrum? Does someone who doesn't know cheese very well like it as much as someone who is quite demanding about the cheese? And this feels like it would be cross-sectional. I think that for judge standards, they'd want another 3 or 4 months on it. But from a cheese board standard, is it going to please the whole family? It nails it, I think.
Yeah. Well, it's very popular with our local Lincolnshire Co-op, and we supply them with cheeses, and they do like this cheese very much. So
good.
The other key thing is in the starter that we put in, it's got Helveticus in, which is giving us that.
You do put some Helveticus in, controversial in some circles.
I think it is in the cheddar world, but for us, it's just really to get a cheese that reflects the milk that we've got and makes a completely different cheese to our other cheeses that we're producing.
All right, let's take it on. Your Linden, your Lincoln.
Yeah, Cote Linden. Now that is a natural rind, Charlie. So that is
so it's very edible.
It is, yes. So this is Joe's little baby, or big babies, and he's developed this over the years. He's producing a very consistent Linden, and in fact, he won the best new cheese at the British Cheese Awards back in 2014.
Well done, him.
Yes, yeah. And then the year before that, he actually had one at Nantwich, the best novice cheesemaker. So that was interesting because at Nantwich, there's a whole row of blocks of cheddar and.
I judge at Nantwich. I know it well. Yeah, it's an interesting one because Nantwich has it's a full spectrum cheese show. You get from the big producers to the small producers, everything's there. So
it's quite funny to see all these big hunks of cheese, and then there's a Linden.
And then your little guy comes alongside and steals all the sunshine. So I'm looking at this cheese. Obviously, I've only got a little bit, but I'm guessing this is probably about 1.5 kilos, maybe just under 2 kilos when whole.
Yeah, 1.5 kilos. Yeah, somewhere around there.
And is it inspired by a particular recipe, or is it kind of like from a number of places?
No, it's just I sort of made the Cote blue, and we were sort of getting very recognised for that, and I quite like a challenge. So I thought, well, let's make a washed rind cheese, because I think that seemed to me at the time 10 years ago was a growing interest to people. I think everybody knew about Stinking Bishop and Epoise, but they're a little bit sort of an acquired taste, I guess, or acquired smell.
Yes, or the smell acquires you, one way or the other.
Well, yeah. So I thought, well, we could probably sort of make a cheese that is going to mature for longer than a soft rind wash cheese, and this is sort of what came up with. So I think I sort of started it off, and then I said to Joe, well, look, can you develop the wash rind cheese? So I think probably about 18 months, 2 years sort of on from that, he'd been on a cheese making course at Welbeck, along with Ivan Larcher. So he obviously learned from the master on wash rind cheeses, and he came back, and then that's when the Cote Linden really was really developed and took off. So
it's an interesting one because I'm tasting it. So the flavour of the centre has a lot in common with your red. It's very butter centred, and the washed rind element really comes through on the rind. And sometimes I get asked when I'm doing cheese training or whatever it is, do I eat the rind? This will be a good example of yes, you must, because a lot of the accent of this cheese, its individuality, comes from its rind.
It does, yeah. And this is, really handcrafted. I mean, I know it's a sort of bit of a cliche, but Joe is in that Linden maturation room sort of 2 or 3 times a week, washing out each cheese with the local beer.
He's washing in beer. Sorry, I didn't catch that bit.
Yes, yeah, we have a local. We've got quite a few local breweries in Lincolnshire, and we're using a beer from Ferry Ells Brewery, which Joe uses just to sort of give the right sort of climate, the right sort of surface for the bee linens to grow, and he does that very well. There is a few times
you don't put beer on your label. I must have missed that. You should put that.
It's probably not a big part of the cheese. I mean, I think it's sort of on the back label. It says it's gluten.
Since when did marketing respect size? No, man. just get it out there. The people need to know. But it's interesting that you're using a local beer. One of the things I wanted to ask you is, what is it about Lincolnshire that you think adds to your farm? You know, what are your milk, your cows? What's flavour is coming from the terroir? What is special?
Hard to define what exactly it is here, but all I can say is that 180 acres of here, the milk, that's where it comes from. It's very concentrated in that one area. The soil type we're on is sort of sandy loam over clay. Then not far away, you're going up to the chalk wolds, which is quite a different soil type. Where Lincolnshire poacher are, they're more on sort of clay soils, I believe. Down South Lincolnshire, you know, it's the fenlands, it's peaty soil.
Very wet.
So in Lincolnshire, there's such a diverse range of soil types that you know, you're going to get this individuality, I believe. I mean, it'd be interesting if we could have, you know, another half a dozen dairy herds producing cheeses, you know, from South Lincolnshire, sort of from the top of the Wolds towards the Trent. You know, they're all got different soil types, and I think they produce quite different cheeses. But unfortunately, Lincolnshire's not a noted dairy county.
Yeah, it should be. It's not got. You're right. So I have a theory, and you know, I have a lot of theories that have no basis in fact. So feel free to shoot me down. That actually cheesemaker is not centered around grass, but cheesemaking is centered around salt. If you look at the areas where salt was readily available, that's often where we've got our oldest cheesemaking histories.
Yeah.
And you don't have salt where you are, so maybe that's part of it. I don't know.
Yeah. I think grass is partly to do it as well. I mean, we don't get the water, the rainfall that they do on the west side for sure, and you know, the land is sort of probably more easy to till. You know, when you're using horses and ploughs, it was easier to turn over wild land.
So I've got a question here from Alison. Are your cows fed silage in winter? Now, I'm going to guess here that Alison is talking about some of the alpine cheeses very much avoid silage because of the acidities that allow some of the, is it the coliforms? I can never quite remember, giving blowing issues. So is it something that you've had, that you need to challenge, take on?
Not we do feed the cows grass silage, but we do, you know, like everything at the beginning, you said if you're producing raw milk, everything's got to be right. So right from the soil to the crop growing, to how it's harvested, how the cows are housed, it all plays a part in getting that milk in, you know, ideal condition for making cheese. So when we're making silage, we made sure there's no soil contamination, which is where the bacterial contamination would come in. We make it quickly. We use contractors. So we're harvesting 40 acres, and it's probably done in about 4 hours. It goes into a big clamp, and then the fermentation starts, and you're trying to get this sort of lactic bacteria lactobacillus to grow, which is sort of similar to milk and everything else.
And that knocks out the others.
It does. It outcompetes them, and so we've got a lovely food. And it's interesting, you know, we do major on milk production from grass and from silage and from maize grown on the farm, and our cows are currently producing over 5,000 litres of their annual production just from the forage on the farm, which is quite a big number.
All right, I think it's time for your big gun, because is it fair to say that Cote Hill Blue is your sort of standard bearer?
Yeah, standard bearer. It was our first cheese that we made along with that's it. And it's the one we've won quite a lot of awards with, and it is our biggest seller, Charlie. So that's looking pretty good to me.
Unfortunately, and I'm very pleased to see it, you sent me a nice big chunk here. So I'm just going to ask a few questions. So we've got this sort of a firmer, crumbly element towards the middle, and we've got a sort of quite a gooey edge there. We can see that there's cement sensitive. So we're getting breakdown coming in from the rind, and we're getting breakdown from the mold within the cheese. So you've got two different processes in play here.
Yeah. So which presents a bit of a challenge. So if you get too much mold on the outside, you'll get too quick a breakdown around the pate inside near that rind, and therefore you can get sort of slippage. If you get it too dry, then you won't get the softening from the mold inside, so it stays a little bit sort of firm. So we can have our Cote Hill Blue. Sometimes it will mature a bit quicker and go very runny very quickly. Another time it will mature longer and will stay firmer and actually goes to more of a texture of a butter. Very difficult to say which way it's going to go, and it depends a little bit on
Well, yeah,
bacteria
but
that's in.
but you've got all sorts of microorganisms in there doing their best to win the day. So,
Yeah,
I mean, it's
exactly.
quite, it is a challenge. But I mean, interesting, just to sort of bring out a thing you said there, you get slippage. Let's expand on that. I assume you're talking kind of a slip coat effect where
Yeah,
just under the rind, we're getting a very, very liquid cheese element, and the rind itself becomes detached from the cheese.
that's it. Yeah. So it doesn't happen very often, Charlie, but it does happen, and it's usually when that rind on the outside just gets us a little bit too accelerated. It grows a bit too
Mhm.
quick, too much of it. So it does it.
Was this
And
your first cheese that you made?
yes, that was. I went on a cheese making course in 2004, and Chris Ashby, who you may have heard,
She taught me. So yes.
and they did these courses, as an introduction way of starting cheese making, and I went on one of those, and
Would that be Reese Heath?
that's it. Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So they said, well, these are the recipes that we're doing. If you want to, and Chris Ashby had developed her own Ashby Blue. She said, you're very welcome to use the recipe. So I came home and I thought, well, actually, I don't want to make it exactly like that, which was, a small Stilton type thing wrapped in foil. And not cheese. I wanted to make a blue brie type if I could. So I sort of changed this, changed that, and Cote was born. And I think just more luck than judgment.
I'm not. Mike. I would never say it's more luck than judgment, but I am going to raise the point that you certainly went in at the deep end trying to pull this off. This is not an easy cheese to make.
No, I hadn't realised at the time. I thought it was going to be easy.
Doesn't sound like you did. But then again, to be honest, I deal with a lot of businesses of all types of food, and all of them small. And if people knew what they were getting into, 3/4, maybe 80% wouldn't do it. Naivety is the big piece of the jigsaw when it comes to starting your business that you cannot do without. I know that sounds like a weird thing to say, but it's true.
But I think the other thing, well, that when we're developing these cheeses, I remember sort of, making a small batch, putting it in the little fridge to mature on, and it was interesting to see how it, which way it went, and in a way, it's got a life of its own, and you either fight it, which I think if you need to do that, you're going to pasteurize your milk and just have it quite standard, or you can say, well, we'll go with it, we'll manage it. It's a living organism. If it's a little bit growing too much mold, make them a bit more drier, or maybe just cool the temperature down. So it's tweaking this, tweaking that, and it's hard work, but I think the result is worth it. So,
I'm looking what, 2 months here, something of that order.
Is that yeah, spot on. So it's a very, actually, for cash flow, it's a brilliant cheese because it's sort of been wrapped after 3 weeks. We can start selling it, and but it is very young. So at 3-4 weeks, you'll get that chalky, nearly chalky all the way through, and it will be very sort of lactic, and it'll just be sort of like milky notes with very little other flavour.
Well, completely different cheese.
Sorry,
completely different cheese. It's still it's the caterpillar, not the butterfly at that point.
It is very much so. Give it sort of up to still another couple of weeks, up to 6 weeks, and it's just starting to change. And then if it's all right, we haven't got too much mold, we've got the moisture right, it goes on to 8 to 12 weeks, and then it can really get sort of complex, stronger flavours, and you can go quite sort of, say, buttery, or just go a little bit runny.
We're beginning to sort of get up. It's been really interesting, really getting up towards the edge of our 30 minutes. I want to quickly ask, because actually it's a question being asked by Alison again, actually. You don't needle this. At least I don't believe
we do. Yeah, Mary does. Yeah, we do.
Where is it? Are we going in from the sides? Is it going in that way? Or from the top? Or oh, Michael, it's like Cinderella. The midnight bells have struck, and he's had to go back. And is oh no, he's back.
No, I haven't done anything. I'm here. Yeah, yeah. No, they are pierced with about sort of 40 pierces, somewhere around
40 pierces. And where are they going in? From the side?
Yes, from the side. Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
So you look carefully. You should be able to sort of see it.
You're right. I can see that. So those blue lines are horizontal.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, yeah. So that was Mary's job after she'd made it, was to pierce all these cheeses. The labour of love, which was just a little kebab skewer with a handle on. So
yeah.
So when she got cross, she went in pierced cheese.
Yes, take it out of the cheeses. Yes,
Yes.
some are more finished than others. The other thing I want to just bring attention to, we were talking about it getting soft. I don't know if you can seal this, but this is almost like it's got a balloon-like texture under here, where
Yes.
you've really got some breakdown underneath this edge. I mean, this outside skin it's a hodgepodge, isn't it? I mean, it feels like there's a lot of Penicillium Roqueforti on the top. I mean, on the outside, but it's not just that.
No, I mean, when it starts to glue up in the maturation, probably after a week, maybe 5 days, you'll just get to sort of like a bluey or even a greeny tinge on the top, and with time that will sort of increase, but then there will be some little white blotches come in as well, which is probably some sort of Candidium or Roqueforti.
You haven't spent the money to some expensive laboratory to find out.
No, we just we accept that it's there as its thing, and it's quite interesting to look at, I think, isn't it?
It is. It's a lovely cheese. It's a lovely cheese to look at. And we've not really talked about it. So you, Michael, have 30 seconds to describe the flavour of the Cote Hill Blue. Ticking now. What does it taste like? It's
got peppery notes, and it's got a sort of not an overpowering pepperiness. You've still got that background flavours of the milk, and there's a bit of mushroomy, herbaceous type flavours there as well. So it's quite a sort of mix of all three. And then gradually towards the end, you get more of the milk feel. It's interesting. Then Mary's been on the farmers market, and we've done tastings. People come and taste it, and they, oh, that's nice. They wander off. They suddenly come back after 30 seconds. That cheese is fabulous. I've still got to taste it. I've got to have some. So the cheese just sells itself. It's amazing. It's complex. I mean, compared to the other two, its complexity feels like it's at another level. You've got burnt notes. You've got herbaceous, almost hoppy notes. You've got, as you say, some butter, and you've got there's a little bit of caramel mixed here, or possibly toffee as a sort of sweetness in the center, and plus all the blue brings to it. So it's an amazing cheese. It feels really, it's kind of controlled wild, if that makes kind of sense. Thank you. I like that phrase, Charlie, very much. Yeah, yeah. Well, we just keep it on the long lead. That's all. So yeah. Well, if you speak to any raw milk cheesemaker, it's about controlling the chaos. It's about shepherding those bacteria. You cannot tell them what to do. You can just try and stop them doing anything too weird. Yeah, that's it. That's it. It's been a pleasure to talk to you, Michael. Thank you so much for coming on, especially our inaugural 2021. Let's hope everything about 2021 has been as good as this talking cheese with you tonight. So thank you very much. It's been a pleasure, Charlie. Thank you very much. I've enjoyed it very much. Until next time. Bye. Right, EO team. What a nice man. What nice cheeses. Well, nice cheese. And actually, he always should belong to the Lincolnshire Tourist Board. Sorry, dog present. She obviously likes the cheese as well. Where was I? Lincolnshire Tourist Board. Clearly, stay on message. Right. This year we are back. The Academy of Cheese has survived, thank God, 2020. We are into 2021. We hopefully are going to just smooth, plain on say. There's lots of training and cheese learning to be had. If you want to get onto that, I've got level 2 and level 1 courses going through for the next 3 months. Other trainers are up there too. So come and learn about cheese. It's all about the tasting. I don't know what else to say except thank you very much for staying with us through 2020. Great into 2021. Let's just think great positive thoughts about the amazingness and luck that we've had just to be able to talk cheese quietly on Tuesday nights. See you next week. Bye for now.